But what I wanted to talk about tonight came from another student email. The fellow who is our sponsor in Washington, D.C., a guy named Gerard Ender, was actually a student of mine who came about 3 years ago and took class with me in New York. And I can't tell you exactly how he'd heard about it, but he had, and he thought it'd be good for him, and he showed up in New York. And he said to us after completing it, "I want to bring you to Washington." Now, if I had 50 hands, I wouldn't have enough fingers to count the number of times somebody says, "I want to bring you to Miami, I want to bring you to Mexico City, I want to bring you to Berlin." And then when they get involved in that and they realize what's really involved in doing that, it becomes a bigger task than they can fit into their lives. So I've gotten to the point that I go, "That's great, I'd love to come to Berlin, let me know and I'll do whatever." But Gerard delivered. Gerard actually has brought us to Washington, and now we're going for our third time. But Gerard wrote to me another email that I want to read to you, and it was really the thing that created tonight. And here's what he wrote. Yesterday, I awoke in the middle of the night, got up, and decided to use the quiet time to finally view your follow-ups that had been online for a while and I hadn't had the time to see. The one on motivation technology, signature performance, extreme performances of note with your guest, Terry Schreiber. Man, do I wish I was closer to get these ongoing supports live every month. Your comment on the fact that casting directors saying no all the time and how it affects them was enlightening, even though I have always conducted myself in that way, and just know that no is part of the journey. However, hearing their perspective now, I can consciously act upon the burden that they must feel by rejecting people all the time. So thank you for letting me share that. And then he goes on. And now here's my real question. A week after my recent callback with Tony Scott, having had a great time with him and really enjoying his demeanor, I found out that I didn't get the part in his movie. It was disappointing. The next day, I had an audition for Paul Haggis' film that'll be shooting in Pittsburgh starring Russell Crowe. I read for my role in Philly, and the casting director told me not to leave town until I'd heard from her because she would need to see me back after what the LA office would say after seeing my video. I called her a couple of times during the day from my other audition at 2 o'clock, and she kept telling me I was still in the running. Finally, I checked into a motel because it was 9 p.m. and I was too tired to drive back to D.C. I phoned her from my motel, and then she relayed the following. Your read of the role was different than everyone else. Everyone else read it in a pretty standard way, but you brought a truly fresh perspective to it that no one else had, and in my opinion, you were the best read of the entire session. The LA casting director saw your video and agreed with me and wanted to call you back, but unfortunately, the director then went with someone else. I conveyed that that was the director's prerogative, in parentheses, bastard. And I asked her who the LACD was. She identified, name withheld. I thanked her for telling me this, and she said she and I have a very good relationship, and I appreciated knowing that I was also in the knowledge bank of LA casting director, name withheld, and that she thinks of my work favorably. That seemed like a success to me. Then, my insecure actor demons started playing their number on me, saying, "Oh, you're really not any good, etc., 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 chatter, chatter, chatter. You know the drill." I'm deeply confused, still sure of my calling, but confused. And so I'm wondering, what is your take on this situation? When casting people find someone's work fresh, unique, think they're the ones, and yet the director goes another way. What do I do? How do I understand this? Is there something to fix? What do I do next time? Did I do something wrong? I wrote back to Gerard the following. Generally, there are many factors in these situations, so many that it's impossible to analyze. Haggis could have wanted his nephew, somebody with blue eyes, or given his propensity to cast names in larger parts and people from a sort of company he always uses in the secondary roles, it's likely he went with some tested associate rather than take a chance on a new local actor. So, no matter how interesting that actor's reading may have been. While this is, I know, very frustrating to you, I have to say that that kind of respect that certain of our newer film directors, Apatow, Mendes, Jackson, who use the same star, who use stars when needed, and keep their friends and longtime trusted collaborators working and close around them, is a tendency in these directors that I respect, and I do. And I want you to be in the company of the actors that are among their regulars, but I like the fact that the Coen brothers and these other directors are loyal to a group of people. I think it's ultimately great. But it's frustrating if you're trying to get into that group or you want a part and it falls to one of those people that they always use. So I wrote back to Gerard the real core of what I wanted to share with you tonight. Because when you ask, what do I do with these comments? How do I use them? How do I know what to fix? Should they have any influence on what I'm doing? Because I know this happens for all of you. You get some feedback, and then you want to know what to do with it, or how do I get more of it, or where do I place it, or I got it fourth hand, does it mean anything? So I wanted to give you some general rules, and these are the ones I wrote to Gerard, and that over the years I've spent being on both sides of the actor casting issue, having been a manager and being on the side of selling the actor, and having been a casting person for a long time and being on the buying side. This is what I would suggest you do with the feedback that comes back to you from an audition or a meeting. Number one, fully take in only specific comments heard in person, firsthand. In Gerard's case, those of that local casting director. Those comments that come firsthand and are delivered to you in person have value. Listen to them, listen to what they mean, figure out what they mean when you can. I'm going to give you some tips for figuring them out. Those are valuable. Number two, give much less credence to those that are reported secondhand. Like that from the LA casting director, which was reported to him secondhand through the local casting director. Even though it was great news. It was great news that the LA casting director had also agreed that he'd given it a unique read and that he ought to have been cast. Great news, but by giving credence to the secondhand comment, he set himself up for a worse disappointment and crash than if he just listened to the first person. Now he's got two people, one of them secondhand. He doesn't even know for sure that she really said that and that the first person didn't make it up, and now all of a sudden his life's crashing and he's hanging the noose in the closet because of something that he's heard secondhand. All right? Number three, and pay absolutely no attention to anything that's traveled through three parties, like what LA casting director said that Haggis said to the local casting director.
Yeah.
Unimportant. You have to act as if it didn't even happen. It may have happened, but whatever is reported to you third hand is really useless, because now you've got two people that could have amplified it and made it up, and you're hanging your life based on somebody told me third hand that Paul Haggis thought I was good, or thought I was good and went a different direction, and you're going to run your life off of a third hand thing like that. Don't do it. Never. Pay no attention to anything that somebody says. So-and-so said that somebody said that you said that. Do not. First-hand ones, listen to carefully. Second-hand ones, grain of salt, big grain of salt. Third-hand things, pay no attention to utterly, get in the habit of dismissing them as if they had never happened, because they won't do you anything but harm. You can't prove the good ones, and the bad ones are meaningless because they may have never have happened. Why be hurt by them? All right. Number four, use your essences and neighborhoods to interpret the first-hand comments. This is a tool you have that other people do not have. When you hear something like, you gave a strong reading, what does that mean? It's better than you gave a weak reading, yes, but that's all it is. You gave a strong reading. What I would then do is, where does strong fit in to the things that are true about me.